Welcome to the Hindsight Pod. I wanted to start off with I want to start off with rating. So I saw a rating on Twitter where Tyrell Malacia was rated below 6.9.
Fallacy.
Bro, in the same rating, Varane was rated higher than Malacia. And that's not even the problem, right? But like I was like, that was in my opinion, that was the best player on the pitch yesterday. Like, of course, he didn't score a goal, but very few people can keep Salah quiet. But the guy follows Salah. The guy follows Salah everywhere Salah went. And I think the last time I saw a United player that tenacious was Rafael against Bayern Munich on Ribery. It was so bad that Ribery at a point wanted to pick a fight with the boy. Jigger. But credit Salah for still scoring the goal. But I remember saying on this podcast, I think I said it on the pod. I don't know if it was the pod, I said it on Twitter that, I saw the kid against AS Roma in the Europa Conference League final. And he was very, very good. And actually, what I saw in the game was him going forward. But also, I went to watch some of his clips, him defending. He defends very well. There's a clip on the coach's voice about how the guy defends, the style of defending he chooses. And I think that, of course, it's one game. The fans were behind him, a lot of adrenaline and all that stuff. But I think that there's real prospect there. There's real prospect there. Going forward is very good. And for me, I think United have got that one correct as far as the left back positions go. But I was just going through the timeline. I saw Virgil van Dijk, people having a problem with him and all that stuff. So first off, it's important that Wale brings that clip back where we said, Virgil van Dijk, might be found out this season. I think I said it on the podcast that this season there will be a lot of exposure on Virgil. But one thing I have to say is that we have to maintain energy. Football fans, we do this thing where we say something and when the thing happens, we don't accept it. So football fans always say you prefer Virgil van Dijk because he's a Rolls Royce defender. He doesn't throw himself to the ground. He defends. His positioning is impeccable. And when you find players that don't throw themselves to the ground, it means that their positioning ultimately is, they are better at positioning. But I saw people dragging the guy yesterday for not throwing himself to the ground because if you look at the clip where Sancho scores, the moment Sancho drops the shoulder and Milner slides away, the next person in front of him is Virgil. And if Virgil steps forward or even throws himself to Sancho, the worst case scenario is that he takes a penalty. Best case scenario, he blocks the ball. But Virgil was like this, and that's not the first time. That's the second time or third time in about 3 months we've seen the same thing. Champions League final 1, Mitrovic 2. If when Mitrovic holds the ball, Virgil van Dijk throws himself at Mitrovic, worst case scenario penalty. Best case scenario, he wins tackle.
Can I quickly come in?
Yeah.
Actually, with the Mitrovic situation, Van Dijk had enough ground to come out across to Mitrovic before Mitrovic got into the 18-yard area. Because usually the defense line works the way it works, right? You have an opposition player bearing down on your goal, and you are the last defender closest to the opposition player bearing down on your goal. What happens is that you're supposed to come across to the opposition player so your other defenders can go behind you and balance. But for now, you are the only one left there. You're supposed to come across. But Van Dijk didn't come across. He kept his hand behind him and was moving backward into his 18-yard area. More like inviting Mitrovic into his 18-yard area, where it is more tricky and more difficult to make a tackle.
Yeah.
Which reeks of naive defending. The same thing yesterday. The crazy thing about the one yesterday was that he went very close to his goalpost with his hand behind him. If the striker picks a point to play the ball to, you can't use your hand. You're basically handicapping yourself by going that far from the guy who has the ball.
More so, when I see defenders do this, put their hand behind their back. Most times it is for a cross that's coming in.
Do you understand?
Because they're trying to make sure that they are not a position where their hand is flailing. So to have a defender as good as Van Dijk, and I think Van Dijk is an excellent centre back, right? I don't know if something has gone wrong with the defensive dynamic at Liverpool, or he's just been covered a lot in his Liverpool career. Because I think that the way Liverpool play, right, with Henderson, Fabinho, and back in the day, I think it was Milner, they play like a ruler. They go up once they come together.
Yeah.
And I think Van Dijk's biggest attribute as a centre back is leadership. Sending people around. He's like a general. And generals don't necessarily fight. They strategize.
I don't agree. In that regard, I don't agree. But
no, let me finish. He's like a general. New age generals don't fight. Back in the day, old generals fight.
you don't rephrase that. I celebrate you.
You spend a lot of time with me, so I understand what you're trying to say.
Just look at this man.
So back in the day, those generals don't fight, but nowadays you strategize. So what I think he's best at doing is sending people where to go, letting them know that I see the game from where I am better than you, right? And organizing, which is something that I think Rio Ferdinand was also very good at. And I think that that's maybe one of the best comparisons in football. Because in football, we don't like comparisons. But in the end, football thrives off nostalgia. This person is plays like this person. And if you believe what people say, there's no new idea in the world. And I think that, they are very similar. So in the end, I think that his biggest skill, that is leadership, is leading other people. And those other persons around him in this period have, maybe for whatever reason, not been available for him to lead, which has now meant that he has to now defend and do the things that he would normally send other people to do. People don't realize just how important Joe Matip is to Van Dijk. And I say it all the time. It was the same thing with Virgil van Ferdinand. Same thing with Virgil van Ferdinand. Ferdinand is a great centre back. I like him. But Vidic was the guy who was willing to, you know what, I'm not English, I'm Serbian. Where we come from, we're fighters. You get? I'll throw myself on the ground, I'll put my head where people don't want to put their leg, and I'll just play. And that's what Joe Matip is to Vidic, to Van Dijk. So not having that centre-back pairing that understands his telepathy, I think is a big problem. And I think that Liverpool, I've seen these things happen before. Once you start a season and you're wobbling, if you remember 2 seasons ago, where Alisson had the best year before, and the next season started, and he started making simple errors. I find that only very few players can come out of that rut. And I feel like Van Dijk might be in a slippery slope where he just keeps going. Because from now going forward, his play will be analyzed to the centimeter. What that does for a centre back is that you now start second guessing your game. The things you have done naturally, you stop doing them. The natural instincts to defend, you stop doing natural things. So I think Liverpool are in trouble. I'm not going to say they're in crisis, but that fundamental basis which Klopp solved when he came to the team. Remember, when he came to the team was a defensive problem. He brought Van Dijk and that problem disappeared. I feel like that problem is opening up again slowly, and we might just be, for it.
Okay. I think it was a really good game. The one credit I want to give United was spirit, and that's what Ten Hag really wanted. Go in there and work your opponent and work really hard. Tyrell Malacia, manager wanted, and I think that appearance of fight, being on everything, just went across the team, and United had a great performance. On Van Dijk's performance, I saw him against Fulham, and I totally agree. I thought it was shambles against Fulham, and even he, by his very high standards, will admit that it wasn't a good game against Mitrovic. And by the way, I think Mitrovic will ruffle a lot of defenders. Mitrovic is coming with a mindset of, they said I wasn't good enough for this league. I'm going to show I'm good enough for this league. Van Dijk was really poor against Fulham. I saw him against Crystal Palace. It was neither here nor there. He has started the season the same way Liverpool have started the season. So I don't think I will blame him that much, because I don't think the entire team have got going. Liverpool are a side that, when they get going, almost everybody's on fire. Trent Alexander-Arnold, we saw him yesterday. The passes weren't coming off. Robertson, not the usual standards, just all around the team. You can hardly pick a player and say, this player has been absolutely outstanding the first 3 games of the season that Liverpool have played. And so I don't think I will criticize Van Dijk that much. But in isolation, I can say that defensively, you've got to do better. When a player, I will never understand why a defender will stand up a player that wants to shoot. I will never understand it. John Terry will never do that. Tony Adams won't do that. So Campbell won't do that. Carvalho won't do that. Cannavaro won't do that. Those top defenders that we used to respect so much back in the day would rather go in there and get injured. They would throw their balls, literal balls, into it and just get bashed and get injured and get carried away than, put their hands behind their back and let someone shoot. I remember Gary Neville saying that Peter Schmeichel used to tell them, if someone wants to have a pop from distance, let them shoot. I'd rather have a shot from a distance. I can see it all the way. But when a player is very close to your area, just outside the area or just inside the box, you've got to absolutely fly into it. And like you said, you'd be worst case scenario, it's a penalty. The person that fucks you, shimmies you and you kick him, it's a penalty. But when you do that, and when the highest level defender like Van Dijk behaves like that, then obviously there's something fundamentally wrong with him as a person, because you cannot be saying, oh, come on, everyone talks about Van Dijk. I like Van Dijk. I think he's really good on the eye. He's not Martin Keown. He's not Tony Adams. He's the kind of defender that you want in your team. But he needs to defend properly, and that's something he has not done.
Yeah. So we spoke about Van Dijk. Rufai, you want to say something about Van Dijk?
Wale was not allowing. Okay, I think I'm on now. I thought IBK wanted to say something because I wanted IBK to go first because I think he's the only one that's yet to start.
I saw IBK agreeing to the point that made about Joe Matip.
I totally disagree with you because, I think I cannot use just one to criticize someone who has been fantastic and who has changed a lot for Liverpool going defensively. Yes, you might say that he has this kind of defensive method where he needs someone who will partner him well in terms of sending messages, telling him to position well and all. I think the problem with Van Dijk is, like Yubi said, is the pairing with Matip. I think he understands the pairing with Matip. He knows where Matip will be anytime. Matip as well knows where Van Dijk will always be in the line of the defense. That yesterday's game, someone already was on the floor, James Milner. Milner already did the job of sliding in to stop a shot that we all thought was going to go in. And are you expecting Van Dijk to also slide in? That means you have 2 players on the ground. Now, what Van Dijk, the kind of positioning he was yesterday was that even you yourself, you would not know that Sancho would fake that shot at first. No one was expecting that fake shot. No one was expecting it. So Van Dijk was positioning and expecting Sancho play it in his own direction, which we all know that it can happen to any defender. So everyone coming at him saying that this guy is shit, this guy doesn't know how to defend. I think that's actually very, very unfair.
I don't think anybody has said. I don't think anybody has said that.
Let me just say, like, nobody said Van Dijk is shit. Like, no one said, in isolation. But my worry for me is different because I've always talked about this before this run of bad games with Van Dijk. It is true this is your defensive method. You're a leader, you send people, but more often than not, right? Especially in this kind of business, you also have to be able to do the job. It becomes a problem when the people that you're usually partnered up with are not available, and then it becomes a problem for you to do simple, basic defending. Look, the first goal Sancho scored was an embarrassment, and the reason is this: the moment the ball was coming from the left side of the pitch and it came into the Liverpool 18-yard area, the worry for me was what's the right word to use? There was no urgency to shut United down. You said Van Dijk went to a position I was waiting for Sancho to play. I said it before. With your hands behind you in your 18-yard, if they play the ball, except the striker, shoots the ball and hits you somewhere, you're not really sure. You can't use your hand. You're in your 18-yard. You are more or less handicapping yourself by stepping off someone that wants to shoot. And we saw the same thing with Mitrovic. The Mitrovic one was way worse. Mitrovic was running, bearing down, the Liverpool goalpost. You had enough ground to come across to him outside your 18-yard area, but you kept moving backward. I have never seen, in fact, before now, way back, we used to attack defenders who used to go backward, left back and right backs, who used to move backward into their 18-yard area when attackers are coming at them. That's what used to happen. Defenders used to get crucified for that. So it is a problem. And I quite agree with Wale, what he said in the beginning. Liverpool are missing a lot of players. But my problem with Van Dijk was simple, basic defending. You're a top defender. You can't make those mistakes. Go there. If you get dribbled, everybody gets dribbled fast.
Which is the point I want to touch on before we move on. I think we're recording for only 30 minutes and we spent a lot of time with Van Dijk already. So I see people making this case for Liverpool and Jurgen Klopp that the team are missing lots of players. I had to go to the website, Liverpool's website, to find out how many players indeed are actually missing. And I have to say that I understand. I'm not one of the people that think that when the team has an injury to a key player, then they should get on about it. It doesn't reduce quality of the play. Of course it does, because ultimately you put your best foot forward, and there are players that are high quality, give something that the other players cannot give. So, but the thing with Liverpool and with Jurgen Klopp is, I find this sequence of excuses, a pattern building. So yesterday they said they could have won the game, right? And I don't have a problem with making a logical and credible excuse. What I found with Jurgen Klopp in the last 8 months, especially when it's come up against very, very, superior or equal opposition in Man City, is that every time they lose a game or draw a game or don't live up to the very high standards you expect them to, there's always like an excuse. You just put it there. It's not about how we performed, or it's not about how we didn't do what we should have done. It's always about somebody else, or there's an excuse. And I find that is a pattern that can sound logical, but because of the aura that Klopp has, he's getting away with some things that other managers wouldn't necessarily get away with. So we spent the whole summer speaking about Liverpool and how they've built a squad that has depth after 5 years that can now compete with Man City, right? And we all knew last season that Man City did not have an accomplished centre forward. But, Man City went about their business. And if you say, every time you speak about Jurgen Klopp or Pep Guardiola or Mourinho, and you say Jurgen Klopp, immediately people say, he's the best manager in the world now. Why is it that the best manager in the world cannot, after 5 years, formulate a team that is capable of going through different systems and not necessarily feeling the impact at full throttle? Because what we're witnessing now is one player to Liverpool, team collapses.
So because we are recording for because we are recording for just 30 minutes, so we could just do them sharp. So I agree with you, and I disagree as well. I disagree because it was a game against United yesterday. I think that should be analyzed in isolation, and I'm going to come to it. But I agree with you because even aside from United, Liverpool haven't started the season well. With the injuries they've had, is that the reason why they couldn't beat Crystal Palace? Is that the reason why? Which other team did they play? Now, the United game for me shouldn't worry Liverpool and Liverpool fans and Jurgen Klopp. I think the other two games should worry them, because if you've done so much and you still say because of injuries you can't win against Crystal Palace, you can't win against Fulham, who just got promoted, then there's a problem. With United, I saw that it's not just one player. The first and second choice centre forwards were injured. right? The center backs, they had to go with their fourth choice. All of the other players were injured. In the midfield.
Hold on. First two choices for center forwards. Luis Diaz starts in the game every time.
No. Darwin Núñez and Diogo Jota. Those are the two I'm talking about.
No. But Firmino is the player. Firmino has been there for 5 years. Darwin Núñez just came.
No, we're saying, I get you, but Firmino is below Núñez and Diogo Jota as number 9 now.
I don't agree with that.
He is.
I don't agree with that.
So he is. Firmino is behind.
He is now. He's below them now. If Diogo Jota was fit, he would have played ahead of Firmino.
Hold on. On what sample size? 2 games?
On what the guy has been playing since Diogo Jota got there and Darwin Núñez got there.
I can understand if you say, hold on. I can understand if you say Diogo Jota. Darwin Núñez, no.
But Darwin Núñez has been the guy playing. He's been their starter now since after they brought him on as a substitute or something in the first game or so.
Wait, Liverpool have played 3 games this season. 3 games.
Right? Oh, if you had the community shield, that's full.
Look, I get what you be saying in the sense that Darwin Núñez has just been here for 3 games.
He's been here for 2 minutes. He's not a starter.
No, but the truth is that he's right now he's their number 1 choice striker.
He's going to be their number 1. He's not yet number 1.
I don't understand.
Come on,
But let's move past that. Let's move past that.
I want to make that point. Hold on. I want to make that point. And just to reel out the injuries that Liverpool have. They have an injury to Joao Matip. They have an injury to Thiago Alcantara. They have an injury to Ibrahim Konate. They have an injury to Curtis Jones, Diogo Jota, Oxlade-Chamberlain, who doesn't start in the team.
Naby Keita.
Yes. Calvin Ramsey, who doesn't start in the team.
Naby Keita also.
Who doesn't start in the team.
No, but you and I agree. But you and I agree that with Naby Keita's situation, for example, like yesterday where you have injuries to Thiago and all that, it makes it more difficult. Naby Keita would have played.
So Liverpool starting 11 yesterday had Joe Gomez as the one who would naturally not start.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So that case you're going to make for the striking position, you should actually make it for defense, because if Matip is not around, Konate will start. So you have to downgrade 2 places. And I don't think that Joe Gomez is a bad defender. Just realities that you have to downgrade 2 places. Midfield, Harvey Elliott, if you believe what
Harvey Elliott and Milner won't start.
Hold on. If you believe what Liverpool fans say, they say he's the best player since Robbie Fowler.
Come on now. Don't bring that one. Don't bring that one.
No, wait. See, if an account, wait. If an account that has 40 followers make a statement, why are you making it fact?
I don't understand.
You understand? Don't make that one.
The person doesn't have an opinion.
No, he has an opinion.
That's what we're doing here. We're talking about starters and people who were there yesterday because we're talking about starters and people who were there yesterday because starters were injured.
I have over 1,000 followers on my Instagram.
Right.
I celebrate grace. I celebrate grace. Yeah, look at this one. Just 1,000 followers.
You are one of the best editors in the game. I know people that don't edit as good as you that have 10,000 followers. You think that if you say something and they say something,
this place you are descending to Yubi. It's not going to take us anywhere. Leave it alone.
No, I'm not saying
when we are talking about
because I have 3K followers on my Twitter doesn't mean that Sega Link has an opinion on me. He's a stupid person.
I'm not supposed to
see what we're talking about. What is obvious is that Harvey Elliott and Milner won't have started. What I actually heard was that Fabio got a knock before the start of the game. That was why they didn't start.
But if he plays 45 minutes,
you see in midfield. No, Yubi, you and I, we have to be objective and mind you, there was a point he got to in the game yesterday where you can say that some things didn't go in Liverpool's way. At some point, it felt like the ball just didn't want to go into the net. They had some situations where, come on a good day, that one na go. Lisandro Martinez had no idea when he blocked the own goal that was about to happen from Bruno Fernandes. That happened like twice. You know, things like that happen. But let's just
Did
leave that
Elanga
alone
not hit
and
the post?
also be objective and say that the fact that they didn't have their midfield starters took a lot out of Liverpool's game. I saw it in the first half. That midfield, it took a lot out of their game. Credit to United and the fight they gave. I thought United won based on this is a game we need to win. We're at Old Trafford. The fans carried them, and we're going to fight for every tackle. We're going to do, and they won on that. Credit to them. But Liverpool missed a lot of their starters. I'm not letting them off on, you have been there 5 years. You spent a lot of money. You should be able to manage that, which I said in the beginning that the United loss is not a problem. It is the fact that they couldn't win against Crystal Palace and Fulham. That's the one they should be worried about.
Great. Anybody want to make a comment on that before we move on?
Before I made my points, I'll just mute my mic.
The thing about recording on Zoom,
Yeah.
and we're all getting used to this. And if you're listening or you're watching the episode, of course we'll do an impeccable job in editing. But the thing about recording on Zoom is that there is feedback on audio if you don't mute. So it's hard to have a back and forth that is really clear and all that stuff. So apologies ahead of time for that, right? Well, thanks for.
You don't do like you don't run for political office. We don't stand on your mandate to.
I think
nothing.
Right? But let's talk about United because we spent a lot of time talking about Liverpool just as we look to wrap up, right? One thing I like about a manager that is honest and has the ability to be pragmatic when he needs to be. And I don't give Arteta a lot of credit, but I have to say that sometimes when you are made to look as if you don't know what you're doing, it can be a bit depressing. In the first 2 weeks or 3 weeks of Ten Hag at United, I found that he's been in a place alone. He's felt alone, and a manager's job is actually a job where
I just one game with this man. It's one game.
It's one game. I'll go back.
This philosophy where you want quote. So
they always do now.
I said it. That you dragged Ten Hag last month for one game. You dragged Ten Hag last time for one game. For one game again.
Let me make my
back in the title race.
Let him make his submission. Go ahead, honorable colleague.
And this is where I have some empathy or some sympathy for Arteta, in the first couple of years at Arsenal, because there were times the guy clearly knew what he wanted to do, but didn't have the players to do it, and didn't have the right commitment, or the players didn't quite appreciate the scale of the scale of energy and commitment they had to put in to achieve what he wanted. Players can be a bit big-headed and braggadocious. Now we play the game. You can say what you want, but in the end, now we play. So all this energy you're expecting, in the end, you don't know the game like us. But the manager, in the end, understands how to manage, sees the game in 90 minutes while he's not playing, and can analyze with a clear head. So back to Ten Hag. What I find is that there's a manager there that understands what he wants to do. However, even he, in the first couple of weeks, didn't appreciate the scale of what he's up against in the Premier League. I think the first 2 games has given him a clear reality check as to the amount of pressure he would need to sustain over a long time to get anything close to what he wants from United. And I think we saw that yesterday. Every press conference I watched him yesterday, and he had one 22 minutes video with interview with Gary Neville and Jim Carragher, where he said, "Look, the players we brought in on Sunday after the Brentford loss to do the hard yards. If Conte does that, everybody says taskmaster. Drilling his players hard. Pep does it. They say, oh, Pep, authoritarian. Bringing in players, making them know who is the boss there." I think that Ten Hag did a fantastic job last week. We have to appreciate the scale of getting the players to go from 0 to competing with Liverpool and beating them in 9 days. That's not an easy task. And you have to respect that. That's not an easy task. So credit where credit is due. I think Ten Hag gave a lot of, I think I saw something that can be worked with. And, you know, Wale posted a video this morning about the time he needs. None of us here is silly. We realize that Ten Hag must give him the time to do what he needs. And the submission I make after yesterday's game is that if United play at that level and you add Casemiro into that team, and we'll speak about Casemiro in more detail on Thursday on the episode. We have a special there for Casemiro. But if United play at that level and add Casemiro into that team and bring in a player like Anthony or this kid Gakpo, I'm not quite sure. I haven't seen him a lot, but I've seen Anthony. You know, a lot of teams will be.
You win the league. You win the league.
Okay,
You're winning the league.
Okay, now let me speak. I quite hear what you be saying. I sat down yesterday, I was watching United, and it was quite exciting. It was good. It was great. You know, the atmosphere at the stadium was quite good. But the question is, those players in that club cannot perform like that in 30 of their 38 games this season. They don't have the capacity to perform like that. They cannot perform like, it's not in them. They can play with the crowd. When you go to Newcastle, you won't have fans like that. Your fans will not be as vociferous as they were at Old Trafford. Do you have the fiber inside of you to be able to do that? I don't think they do. When you add Casemiro into that team, obviously what Casemiro does is Casemiro will screen in the middle of the park. United may not be conceding many chances as much as they would do, but quality-wise, in the final third, I don't think they will hurt anybody. And yesterday, defensively, Liverpool was shambles. I don't think Brentford would defend that badly. To be honest, I don't think so. So, Chelsea, Ten Hag yesterday did what I would have done as a manager. Maguire has been shitty, forgive my language. I would take him out. It's very easy. It's an easy decision. Luke Shaw was a finished player. You know, when I always say that when a player when you play under Mourinho and you cannot blossom under him, I'm sorry, it's end of the road for you. And I saw Luke Shaw at United, you know, a few times Mourinho criticized him and he was sulking. Mourinho praised him and everyone, hey, come on, let the boy go. Luke Shaw has been inconsistent, will always be inconsistent, good player. So when you bring in Tyrell Malacia, saw the kid against Brentford, came into the game, and when I see a young player come in and have a go at his senior teammates, I see character there. And he was United's standout player by countryman last night. And I just feel like United, comparatively to what the opposition is, you know, looking at Chelsea, looking at Spurs, I think United are at the foot of that chain, because I don't think they are that good. I look at Arsenal, for instance, and Saliba and Gabriel look like they are very insurmountable. And we're still hearing Arsenal want to, you know, get a midfielder in and all of that. But yesterday was a really good performance. Can United sustain that? Can they give that kind of performance in another 10, 15 games? That's what I doubt.
But IBK, do you want to say something before I go? We have to, you know, we're doing only 30 minutes, so it's almost
the same way Neil Bong is asking that question. I think you should direct it to Arteta as well and us now. These things are not factual. These things are you play as it comes. So you can't just say that are they going to play in the next 10 that you can ask your Arsenal players as well. Are they going to hold on to this kind of play for the next 10 games? So these things are not, you cannot just come and
bring it down.
And throw Ten Hag under the bus like that. No, it doesn't work that way, I beg. Let's let's enjoy it. We know Arsenal, we know Man United. These things are just based on the fact that they are enjoying the momentum. By the time it's time to separate the boys from the men, we'll start seeing you
just look at this one.
About Arsenal doing well. No, but generally, I think Ten Hag understands now that the players he needs to get the job done are players who can run around for him, players who would always do it till 90. When he started Elanga yesterday, you know, a lot of guys were saying that who is Elanga? Even UB, I saw UB's tweet, and UB was trying to say, you know,
that's a lie.
What kind of lineup is that?
No, what kind of is that? Go to my timeline, that's a lie. Only you got check. I think
they don't.
Keep your mouth shut. You deleted it.
You too. You are telling me this.
You don't want this money, go delete it. It is scramble. I
so many things yesterday.
This
Well,
podcast,
the only
I
person we
know
know delete now Pierce Morgan. And
this
they don't batch them like match.
this podcast,
Others
I know everybody so well that I see what IBK trying to do. IBK make that rebuttal to Inni so that you get one eye on Xavi. Say this is where they win 2 yesterday. Say they enjoy it. So you don't want to make the same thing apply.
So I think Ini honestly Ini makes a good point because
he makes a good point. But the thing I know about what I found about football these days is that you have to, because we criticize a lot, right? And all of us, this podcast is not an exception. Even though I think that I watch a lot of content and we always try to put it as objective as possible. And even when we are not trying to do that, there's someone on the podcast that will say, no, we're not being objective. And that's why I love, the personalities on the pod. And because we criticize a lot, that when I say we, that's football community in entirety. We need to be able to take a pause when things go well and when you see things spot on and say, this went well. And give the manager credit for those moments where things go well. Because I personally say the biggest problem I found with some United managers, number one, is that how do you go from a defeat and in 7 days we cannot see one thing that you work on the training pitch? What we saw yesterday is that if for anything, if they didn't train tactics, if they didn't do movement and defensive shape, they ran their life off in that 9 days between last game and this game. And they replicated the same thing on the match day. But that's what I always see.
Honorable colleague, allow my submission. So you see, I agree to some degree to what you're saying. Because obviously Ten Hag has gone from that defeat and it's gone, these guys ran 13 kilometers more than we did. And looking at the numbers, that's the biggest difference in distance covered, I think, since the Premier League era started, which is a big deal. So it's the kind of statistics that you don't want to be associated with. So he's gone into the training ground and he's told the players, this can't happen. But I also think what happened yesterday, even under Ole, United weren't all that bad against the big boys. Because the United Liverpool game, it's the occasion where you see the players coming in. And I think also with the personalities. If Maguire had played that game yesterday, forget all the running they've done over the week, he would have dropped something for Liverpool to score. That one is it. So I think the personalities, Malacia coming in, I think that was his first start this season. The boy, you mentioned the boy stopped, Salah from doing anything. He didn't just stop Salah alone. He stopped Salah and stopped Trent. He stopped both of them. Because I remember clearly in the game where Trent was trying to get forward, you meet Malacia, you are going nowhere. Salah was trying to get forward, you are going nowhere. So the boy put out a serious, performance of the season kind of performance, right? And then you can almost say the same thing that's probably Varane's best performance in a Manchester United shirt. And then Lisandro Martinez.
It is Varane's best performance in 3 years.
I don't know about that, but I think in a United shirt, that was his best performance. So I'm thinking against Liverpool. And the reason why it's not rocket science. You don't expect them to perform like that all through the season. Because they're not going to play Liverpool for every game in the season. They're going to play games where now you need to come, you have the ball, boss the game, show the world how this new manager wants to play. That's where your quality individually, will be put to the test. So it's one game, which I think I quite agree with you in the sense that, ETH is beginning to understand this is the gravity of this is how big the job I have come into. This is how big the job is. But like I said about Arteta way back, and I was just thinking about it. We have a lot of content on this podcast. Wale might need to go into the archives. At the time when Arteta was getting a lot of bashing, I was saying Arsenal have to be honest enough to give Arteta the players, the instruments that he will need to execute what he wants to do. And that's what's playing out now. So United have got to do the same. This is the kind of coach they should have given those 3 years they gave to Ole. If you give Ten Hag those 3 years, and the players that he wants. Now that Casemiro has come in, I don't ever want to see McTominay or anybody. I think Eriksen and Casemiro at the base of the midfield will do anything you want them to do. I think in the last since the season started, Eriksen has run more kilometers than any of his teammates, which is surprising. So if you play Eriksen and Casemiro, I think you have a perfect midfield, center midfield combination. So you build up from there. I think he's looking good.
I was looking for the stats that United made. I think 50 more sprints than Liverpool yesterday, and that is something that we bashed them for so long. I think this is one I wanted to put out as well, and because like I said, we have to give credit when you find that there's a need to. Lisandro Martinez made more interceptions than anybody on the pitch. Made more block shots than anybody, and that's the kind of thing. I think that where we are getting to in football is that confidence is. People don't realize how big a role confidence is for football players or athletes in general. When Marcus Rashford scored the goal, between the time he scored the goal and the game ending, we saw him do things that he was doing 3 years ago. Went past 3 people, put the shot out. And, sometimes we don't realize how important, when a player is bad, it's bad. Maguire is a bad player. Of course, his confidence is also shot, but he's a bad player. He can't do the things that you require him to do. He's a 6-yard area defender. You get. So when you ask him to go 30 yards up the pitch and play passes, you're asking for trouble. But anyway, let's wrap. I wanted to wrap up with this idea about United has made comments about Sancho and Rashford that why he's most pleased in all of yesterday's the fact that Rashford and Sancho scored goals is that all through the week he could sense the worry, the subtle worry that if I put in this much defensive work for the team, I won't have enough in the tank to do the attacking bits, right? And it's something that I give Pep Guardiola the biggest credit for. I think that no manager has gotten more out of luxury players or supposed luxury players than Pep Guardiola in the history of football. When you see a Pep team and you see Bernardo Silva doing things that Ruben Neves or Gattuso will be proud of, right? Hiring people, going to tackles, and that's a supposed small, feeble luxury player. You see Ilkay Gundogan doing incredible things. You see Kevin De Bruyne putting in the hard yards. When a player like Sancho, the amount of defensive track back that guy did yesterday, and Rashford, we've seen Rashford do over the years, but Sancho in particular, to get a goal on top of that, I think when you get to a new team, we've talked about this on the podcast, when the manager tells the players, this is what I need you to do, the manager also needs a bit of luck for those things to start working early so that the players can understand that he's right. Because if you tell a player, I want you to hold the touchline constantly, trust me, don't come to the ball, let the ball come to you. In the first few games of your tenure, you need luck and a bit of providence for those things to start working so the players can believe you more. Because it's on that template that you start demanding more and say, you know what, trust me. So the players scored 2 goals yesterday. Maybe 2 wide players that worked the hardest on the pitch. I think those were fantastic building blocks for Erik ten Hag. So I don't want to go too much about United's victory yesterday, but in the end, we have to bring a first take on the podcast for our first solo episode, and hopefully you enjoyed that because we have spent 30 minutes on the podcast already today. So I want to thank you very much for joining.
Hold on, wait. Hold on. I think you have a call or something. Your audio just went bad all of a sudden.
Hold on a second. How bad is it?
Like, can you guys hear his audio?
It sounded like one aspirant at the NBA conference yesterday. I don't mention name, Charles.
Hold on.
I think somebody's trying to call you or something. Check WhatsApp call, check normal call.
Now village people now. Why now they try call you? That Tukele.
Yes, you're back. So take that outro again.
Is it better now?
Yes, you're good.
All right, good. So I want to thank you for making the podcast today, gentlemen. It's been a pleasure. I have to let you go because I see in his just been putting like he's to go somewhere. IBK, you can go back to wherever you were, whatever you're doing.
Where's our fan?
I find good. They don't worry, bros.
This no worry for 2 years.
2 years, Afan.
Wow. Politicians for Nigeria don't do pass like this.
By the way, we're having a hangout on Saturday, so make everybody know now.
This Saturday.
Yes.
Hey, I don't know. Anyway, shall we see?
Anybody begging? Yes.
See this one. You know how many people want me for their gathering? You fuck up.
Don't be those people. So yeah, that's what it is. We're having a hangout.
Why IBK they look like? IBK, say you take Molly. Why you they look like
IBK they do all those kinds of things. IBK.
Unmute your mic before you talk now. Which kind of village man is this God?
In your bong, I beg, drop code, I beg. I thought
IBK, you sabi one guy where he handle a spiritual one thing for Twitter. I think that guy dropped tickets where we 20 million.
Guy, plenty. Even Louis said, you know Louis now. Louis.
Bro. So the guy had a ticket to win 20 million. So he now posted when he had a cash out of 2.6 million. And that time he needed AC Milan to score a goal. And I think AC Milan scored. It's like the guy chopped that 20 million.
As in.
This if you get 2 heads.
I beg, waiting for the best Twitter handle. These are the things I want to hear.
I invest in offshore business across Europe and Africa. You know, high risk.
Anyway,
IBK, shall do giveaway reach your podcast members. They do giveaway for Twitter. We don't say anything. Damn bloody fool.
They do for in-house.
All those fake giveaway that they do for Twitter. The day when they go catch you for inside motor. One person where you think you say don't wait when you don't send the money. Go in for bus stop.
Okay. Do this thing, you know do. You say brokers.
Like they do fake giveaway for Twitter. You say my people, what can you do? What can you do with 10,000? Reply with hashtag.
Let me tell you.
Criminals too much.
All right, guys. We're done. Let us know what you think about the episode on Zoom. If you like the quality of the audio, what we can do to make it better. We always love that input. And we're finally on 2K, so we should expect to see at least 1,000 views on this particular episode, right? We'll see you on Thursday. Bye-bye.